Hello folks, Callum here. Just a bit of housekeeping before we start the review. This episode was originally supposed to come out on Christmas Day, but due to an issue with uploading that I take full responsibility for, our Christmas episode is being released belatedly on Boxing Day. Apologies about that. Uh, so I hope everybody had a great Christmas, and on with the main show.
Hello, welcome to the Sticky Floor podcast. I am Callum once again, same as always. Joining me for our special Christmas episode again is Sima,
Hello.
Danny Boy,
Hola.
and another new guest face this week, Nicola. Thanks for coming, Nicola.
Hello. Thanks for having me.
We'll start off this episode by going over our very, very, very popular slot. What have we been watching this week? Where we do the obvious ask, what have we been watching this week? Simon, I'll start with you again. What have you watched since our last episode? Apart from the film we watched for this, obviously.
I'm trying to think. I don't think I've watched a lot. I watched the Bad Education Christmas special last night on TV with my mum while we were, she'd gone over on her ankle last night, so she was like bathing it in ice. So we watched that while she was in like crippling pain.
Did it heal?
Was that a pun?
No, I'm just meaning did it heal in any way, because
She's got one of those like bandage things on it. She can walk on it. She's got walking sticks, so she's fine. But I don't think I've watched. Yeah, the Bad Education Christmas special. I don't think I've watched a lot this week. I've been quite busy, so.
Was it good?
I mean, I've seen it like 100 times. It's like, it's fine.
wow. Big fan.
The guy that plays like the Scottish tramp, my mum knows him. She says he's a dick. So there's always that fun bit.
Okay.
He's the one from Fresh Meat.
Well,
Gary Tank Commander, that's the
I'm
one.
kind of related to him.
Oh,
you never told me this.
He's
No
my
offense.
he's my cousin's husband. So my auntie's always going on about going to his wedding because like she's like, oh, Fresh Meat were there, blah blah blah, and I'm like, So she tells me about it a lot.
wow.
Oh God, all my mum does is slag him off.
Is that why she did that, to take the pain off her ankle? Just to isolate him?
Yeah, shouting alleviates a lot of her pain. That's why we have BBC Radio 4 on a lot. So, yeah, I'm sure it helped. I think that's all I watched, though, which is strange.
Cool. Daniel, what have you watched?
I watched a Italian 1960s neo-realistic film. Hopefully Nicola's not got any relatives in this one. Rocco and His Brothers. Fucking, have any of you seen this? It's fucking amazing.
No. The name.
It basically just follows a family, an Italian family who, they're homeless. They've moved from the south where there's hundreds of farms to Milan, and they just basically need cope with unemployment, lack of house, and all the rest of it. Worth a watch. Nicola, do you watch anything?
331 episodes of ER. well, the last
Dear
one.
God.
I've done them all. It's like I don't know what to do now that I finished, but that's like I watched the final episode, and basically I started a couple of years ago, but during lockdown I started to get back into the momentum of watching ER nearly every single day, so much so I felt like I was working in a hospital and I was exhausted.
That's so funny to say that. My mum watches Grey's Anatomy and she like dreams about the characters because she's that close to them.
Yeah, I was getting to that point. I'm like, oh no, that poor nurse and that doctor's messing her about. When's he gonna learn? But so I finished the last episode, and they make it quite satisfying for like the hardcore watchers, because they copy a scene from the first episode, like the first shot of the first episode that's reenacted, and they kind of tie it up in a really nice little bow, so it was good, and lots of guest appearances, and George Clooney came back, so what can you do?
Yeah.
I was happy. And then I've just been watching The Office because it's easy and it's like comfort telly, so that's what I've been doing because I'm not
American one, presumably.
Yes, yeah.
Very comforting.
No, that's stressful and makes me frown. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I haven't watched anything this week. Literally nothing. Only the film that we're about to discuss. Well, no, I've
I think
watched.
you have watched stuff because you told me because I came to your house and dropped off your present and you told me you've been watching telly.
Well, I've watched telly. I haven't watched any films. I watched the.
Oops, I didn't know that's what the question was because I would. Oh wait, Simon had been watching telly too though, so it's fine.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I watched the Mortimer and Whitehouse Gone Fishing Christmas special with Chris Rea as a special guest. So that was fun.
He's a singer, isn't he?
Yeah, see, remember the first film that we reviewed? He wrote the theme tune, which we couldn't hear because we watched the pirate because the person who uploaded it onto YouTube had pulled the song off for copyright reasons. But yeah, he's the one who sang that "Driving Home for Christmas" song.
Ah, I see.
He's from Middlesbrough, same as Bob Mortimer.
Mm.
Anyway, enough about that. This week we watched Black Christmas. Now, this is the original 1974 version, not the many remakes that it's had. Let me just get my notes up. So this is a Canadian production, though it's set in America, and it was directed by Bob Clark. It stars Olivia Hussey, Keir. I'm not quite sure how to pronounce this guy's last name. It's spelled Dullea. Dalia.
Maybe it's Welsh.
All right. Well, that doesn't help.
Yeah,
Yeah, the Yawa, maybe. Margot Kidder and John Saxon. So if I can,
He's the lieutenant, isn't he?
he is the lieutenant, but we'll get to that. The plot. My very brief summation is the plot is during the Christmas break, a group of sorority girls are stalked by a stranger. That's probably the vaguest plot starter we've had so far, but
is that all we're getting?
Here's the thing, I was going to bring this up maybe in another podcast. You ever go on Google and you type the name of a film into Google and then it comes up with some details, including a wee summation of what the plot's about? And it always gets key details wrong. Like it gets the order of events wrong, or it gets the relationships between people. Have you ever noticed this?
I don't tend to look up the wee descriptions, but I'm sure if I did, I'd see that.
Yeah,
It seems like something that's very common.
Like Google Translate.
Exactly. I'll have an example of this next time it's my turn to host. Okay. So I'll just go kind of plot point by plot point and we'll just discuss it from there. No, fact, sorry, I'm getting ahead of myself. What did you all think of the film? Daniel, what did you make it?
Not perfect. I did like it a lot. I mean, the point of a horror film is to scare you, and towards the end I was scared, or at least I cared enough to be scared for Jill. What's
Jess.
her name? Jess. And it was a J. What about you guys?
Simon? Oh no, Nicola. Sorry.
I'm sorry, Simon. I liked it, but basically, yeah, it's a bit slow paced. I think because it's kind of the first in that kind of genre, it's just kind of feeling its way. But I did enjoy the female characters and was kind of surprised there were no boobs in it, which was actually a good thing for a slasher. You know what I mean?
Yeah. You'd seen it before, hadn't you, Nicola? Like myself.
A decade ago.
Yeah,
So
same here.
I don't remember anything.
Same here. Simon.
Yeah, I enjoyed it. I agree with Nicola. It took a while to find its feet, but once you get into it, it's good. I'm not good with horror in general, especially home invasion shit. That's just, there's certain episodes of Criminal Minds I'll never be able to watch again. You know. So yeah, it scares me thoroughly. And I was a bit shaken afterwards. But I can't get through the It films, so
Yeah, they're creepy.
Yeah, I'm quite bad with horror, so anything scares me. So, but it was good. I enjoyed it. I enjoyed the plethora of female characters. It's always good to see. And yeah, it wasn't overly sexualized either, which is a nice change from most slashers, most horror, most films you could go on. So it was good. Yeah.
Good stuff. Well, least it did what it intended to do if it scares you. Yeah, I really like this film. Obviously, this is probably the third time I've seen it, and because I knew kind of what was going to happen, and certain things maybe won't have the same effect on me as now than I did when I was 16. Yeah, I still enjoy it. I think it's pacing wise, it does get a bit slow in the middle, but I think it's well paced enough. Like, I think it's quite well paced because it's considered the very first of the slasher subgenre. It doesn't. It's lucky enough that it doesn't have some of the more annoying tropes that are attributed to the genre, like, you know, the sort of highly sexualized characters, characters that are convenient or stupid for plot convenience reasons. Although there are one or two bits like that, and we'll get into that. Yeah, and also, you know, a lot of the times in these kind of films, you don't care about the characters; they're just there to be killed by the baddie, just for all the various set pieces. And I actually did care about the characters, so that was good.
Well, like most of them, I only cared about Jill.
Jess.
Yes.
You didn't care about her that much. You can't even remember her name.
That's
Who's
true.
the first person who gets killed?
Claire. Again.
Rest in peace.
Yep.
I cared about her because, like, after she dies, it goes to her dad waiting for her, and that was just really poignant and made me feel really bad for him because he'd just been hit by a snowball, and then he's going to find out his daughter's dead.
We never does.
He totally does. He faints at the end. He knows.
No, but he doesn't know that it's his daughter. It's just the shock of
But he knows. He knows. I know he knows.
Anyway, we're getting ahead of ourselves. So
it's when you bring the parents into it, though, it adds a level of like gravity to the situation, definitely.
So, as I say, I'm going to go through plot points. These are very thin, so if there's any details I'm missing out, just let me know. So, the film starts with an unseen man climbs the exterior of a sorority house where a Christmas party is being held and enters the attic. The house phone rings and Jess answers to discover it is an obscene phone call from a person who's called before her. Jess calls the other sorority girls and listens to the callers' rants in strange voices. Barb, played by Margot Kidder, insults the caller, who in turn promises to kill her. Okay, so this is where we introduce the main plot device of the film, and we introduce most of the key players in the film are introduced as well. So, what do you think of this opening scene?
Well, the opening scene, the camera movement was really cool with the point of view shots. Yeah, you could tell. I thought it wasn't that smooth, but at the same time, it was pretty. What's the word? Pretty. What's a word that means that it's inspiring to other filmmakers?
Inspired.
Sure, we'll say that. But
is that the right word, Nicola? You're shaking your head.
Well, no. Well, he was asking for another word for inspiring, so. Seminal. It's seminal. It was like one of the first ones to do it.
Yes, exactly. I mean, it wasn't one of the first ones to do it, but definitely like a horror film put you in the shoes of the baddie, which isn't usually the case. And then like Brian De Palma done it in Untouchables, and he aced it.
I suppose Peeping Tom is the earliest example, although in that film it was literally a camera being used for the point of view of the killer. I've yet to see Peeping Tom. Yeah. Simon, what did you think?
I really liked the opening scene. I liked the juxtaposition between the camera techniques. I like how you get a sense of like the environment and community in this kind of opening shot, and like how it is quite chilling to like jump back and forth between like the killer's like heavy breathing and like shaky kind of point of view to this kind of like warm festive event with like kind of youthful cheer and like optimism and stuff. So you get worried for them even though you don't know these people. Also, I just want to add the character Barb. I really, really liked her introduction. I thought she was great. She stands out in my mind.
Even though she was a massive cow.
Yes, she was great. She was a great character. She was a massive cow. I love those kind of characters. She was right to do that. Shit. Yeah, she was right to do that. It was being creepy and weird, making pig noises. You know, as she should.
I thought that bit was quite cringeworthy because none of her put downs were very funny, and they were all laughing at these really terrible American pattern.
Yeah, I mean,
It's like the 70s, man.
yeah, the
Like you
writing was,
gotta give it some leeway.
yeah. I mean, horror
Yeah.
films are known for their dialogue, for their stimulating dialogue. So,
Yeah, fair enough.
Yeah, like it's
Also, she was Rex, so I bet she thought everything she said was funny.
Nicola.
yeah, exactly.
So yeah, Nicola, what did you think of that opening?
I agree with Simon. I think the kind of the contrast between the cold outside and the warm inside, and the party was a really good way to introduce all the kind of different characters, and you kind of get the idea that Jess is a bit prudish and Barb doesn't give a fuck about anyone, and yeah, the matron's not there yet. I can't even remember
No.
there's the lady from like Big Fat Greek Wedding when
Oh
she's young.
yes. What's her name? She's been in lots of things as well. What is her name again? Andrea Martin. Yeah. She was. I mean, her character probably is the most even-tempered at a lot of them.
I'd say so.
Yeah. It's also. I mean, I already made this joke to you, Nicola, how her boyfriend character also has an afro, as if. I wonder if that was the casting decision, right?
I don't know, but yeah, you either are attracted to someone completely different or someone who looks very much like you. So there you go.
Yeah. I like how with the heavy panting of the killer, although he's not killed anybody at this point, that wasn't too overdone. Like I could imagine, I felt like that was just kind of like it was just kind of, it wasn't so heavy that it became hammy. So I like that. It seemed kind of believable. And I kind of like how the shaky cam, I wonder how they actually did that. Sort of, it gave the impression that this is a kind of, how would you describe them? You got the sense that this is a disturbed person from the camera work because of how shaky it was. Yeah, so what did you think of the noises he made on the phone?
I don't know if I have an opinion about
Yeah,
the
that's a
noises
bit
he
of
made on the phone.
That's,
Deeply
I guess there was
disturbing.
a mega mix of noises you wouldn't expect.
yeah.
Noises that are like similar to pig noises or like slightly like definitely ones that sound like pigs. I don't know, maybe it was that episode of Doctor Who when I was a kid with like the pig humans or something, but for whatever reason that is genuinely horrifying to me. It is the noises he was making was like set me off straight away. I was like, no, it embodies a level of terror. I'm not scared of pigs. They're pigs, man. They're incredibly intelligent, like creatures, but like when I hear like that kind of pig human kind of mashup kind of noise, I don't know, it chills me to the bone. I think it's because I know they can just eat anything. Like you
They
throw
can
a
eat
corpse in a
anything.
pig pen, you're not gonna see it.
Yeah, they don't care. They're going to eat humans. They're coming for you.
There's something deeply disturbing about that for some reason.
See, that didn't disturb me, but the way it was shot did disturb me. Did you just hear that transition there? Boom. Yeah, well, I watched Saving Private Ryan before this, and Spielberg's like the modern master of keeping large groups of people in frame at the one time. So after seeing that and seeing all these people, a group of more than four, and then when you see that scene of them and they're on the phone call at the start, some of the heads are chopped off because the directing isn't that good. But okay, maybe that's
maybe it's alluding to their death.
Maybe. But then there was a couple of good shots right after that where he pans, and that's when the guy gets really creepy and he pans between all the individual faces. That was really cool.
Yeah, I mean, I think just watching it again, because I saw this when I was 16 on Christmas Eve 2007, funnily enough. It got shown on BBC Two. Yeah, I think watching it back now, I think the phone call noises are a bit of a mixed bag. Some of them are quite cartoony and a bit so over the top that they're not really scary, they're just daft. But some of it, especially when the other voices get brought into it, that actually still kind of gets to me a bit. Just hearing like someone reenact a full-blown domestic.
See, on the childish voices, do you guys want to talk about that already? Or am I jumping ahead when we're talking about that character of Billy?
We'll come to that in a bit.
Cool.
Cool.
Also, like, wasn't it quite unusual to say cunt in a film as well? Like,
Yes,
it
this
was
is an
quite
early example of that in a mainstream film.
a mainstream film.
Yeah,
Yeah.
especially in like, I know it's Canadian, but like it's supposed to be set in America, especially in like that setting, because like, you know, you just don't expect it in like
They're very
that
stuffy.
accent. Yeah,
Yeah.
they're really
Exactly.
weird about it.
Yeah, funnily enough, when this was shown in the UK, that bit was censored, which is strange considering how the word cunt is said more widely in the UK than it is in America. Like, it's a lot, it's not, I mean, it's still obviously a taboo thing to say, but it's not as taboo amongst the riffraff anyway.
Mad.
On a technical note, you remember you told me about the telephone and how they're holding it and how it's completely wrong.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know. Did anyone else notice they were covering the wrong bit of the phone? So
No,
they
it's
were
not.
covering the bit the sound came out of.
Oh yeah,
Oh.
I didn't actually notice that, but no, I said that they do this thing where Jess covers one end of the phone, so suppose covers one end of the phone, so nobody, so the rest, so he can't hear them, but they can hear him. My problem with that is on an old phone like that, it's not in speaker, so how would they hear him? But as Nicola's just pointed out, she put her hand on the.
No, maybe she didn't. Did she put it on the wrong end now? I'm
She did.
confused.
She did. She did put it on the. Well, actually, wait. You hear through there and you speak into it. Yeah, no, you're wrong. She did put it on the right end.
Got really confused. It's been so long since I've used an actual real telephone. It's just mobiles now that I've completely forgotten how they work.
But you see my point. Like, how would the rest of them hear what he was saying on a phone like that?
Maybe it amplifies it if you cover it a bit. You know, like if you put your mobile phone in a cup or something or a bowl and it amplifies it.
I don't
So
think
maybe that's what she did.
Yeah,
I mean,
but
suspension of disbelief, Callum. How else
yeah,
are they going to
exactly.
get that?
Like it's a niggle, but it's just something I realised. Like they wouldn't be able to hear what you can only hear it if you put your ear to it. It wouldn't work like that.
I'd also say one other thing that I noticed about this scene. So like when Barb's introduced and she's swanning about with her whiskey, I was like, oh, they're going to have like this drunk girl and she's in this massive shirt and I bet it's only got like one button done up. But actually she kind of asserts herself as like, you know, quite a dominant figure and it isn't about her being all like flouncing about in a shirt that's going to unbutton itself in like a second. So that was quite nice.
Yeah. There's not actually any shagging in this film. Which
You
is
sound disappointed.
No. I've just again, like I said, it doesn't have a lot of the more annoying tropes that are kind of associated with the slasher genre. Anyway, so
Yeah, can I just
cool, go ahead.
Weird relationship between like psychosexual horror, especially in like modern horror, is genuinely deeply disturbing. Watching a film like this was like really refreshing as well, because there's such a weird correlation between like sexuality and like murder these days, which is like, it's not always the case. And like from one level, yeah, obviously it's supposed to like horrify you, but on another level it's like there's only so much sexual violence that you can portray until it becomes like incredibly normalized. So yeah, I just wanted to say that.
I think maybe, just to play devil's advocate here, I think maybe the reason that it is so commonly used
That's
is
a red
because it
flag.
is. Do you know, I was watching, right, whatever, but now I seem like a fucking creep, man. But
No, you're doing all right.
okay, thanks, Callum. So someone, where it is male or female, is that their most vulnerable during, like, you know, sexual experiences usually? No, would you disagree, Nicola? So I was just saying it would be like
Well, to be fair, you're right. People are naked. You are at your most vulnerable when you're naked. So.
Yeah. Your sensitive bits are exposed.
Yeah. So maybe that's got something to do with it.
All right,
I don't know. I think
was that your point? I feel like
Yeah, it was. You're at your most vulnerable.
I think sex in films, though, especially when it's a woman kind of giving into her sexual desires, it's that whole kind of like mother virgin thing where it's like, well, if you're going to be a dirty skank, then you're going to get killed because you put yourself in that situation. And you do see that a lot in the old horror films. Like, if you
it's
have
like
sex, you die.
Well, I mean,
it's the whole Madonna complex, and then like the final girl gets channeled into that as well. When the final girl's factored in, like, I also want to bring up in the argument is Jess. Does she fall into that? But when that archetype, when
Because
that archetype gets,
because Claire falls into the
yeah,
archetype, and she's the first one
yeah,
that dies.
she is like that. Like that's why it surprised me, because like the final girl archetype in horror is like virginal, innocent. You know, she is like holier than thou. So, but whereas Jess, who could be used as things, it's left ambiguous. I don't want to jump ahead, but like, you know, she is technically the final girl. But when you look at that kind of like character in horror, and like compared to the rest of the women that tend to be around her, who are like, you know, it's like subtextual slut shaming and like explicit slut shaming, and the way she's like filmed, like the way they can be filmed or like portrayed, it's like so sex is hypersexualized, which is a wild sentence, but it's true. So it's, you know, I don't know how we go into this, but sex and horror, it's a weird relationship, and it's good to see like sexless horror. Yeah.
Yeah, I was just going to make one point, just jumping off what you were saying, Simon. I think a lot of it also comes down to, I mean, it's that tradition in fairy tales, of like, you know, the bad children get eaten by the monster. So, as it is with horror films, they have that kind of, like most ghost stories, people are being punished for their sins. So the least sinful character is the one that survives, and it's just a tradition in horror stories and scary stories, like throughout time.
Well, this one's like based on like a very well-known kind of urban legend in America, isn't it?
Yeah,
So
yeah, the babysitter and the babysitter and the stranger, which has also been made into a film in its own right more than once. It's also apparently partly inspired by a killing spree that occurred in Canada some years before that. Although it's not been explicitly stated by the filmmakers which incident, most people think it's a person whose name I can't remember, but was dubbed by the press as the vampire rapist because he bit the breasts of his victims. Yeah.
ouch.
God, they came up. You see,
Lovely.
they don't do this so much anymore, but God, you see the press when it came to coming up with nicknames for serial killers. It's so silly, some of it. That's a thing for another time. So Claire, as we just mentioned, suggests that the caller could be dangerous before returning to her bedroom, and she gets into a bit of an argument with Barb, who makes one of her classic Barb body comments. The intruder suffocates Claire with a plastic dress bag and moves her body to the attic, and he lures her to the club. He kills her by imitating the cat noise of the cat Claude, which we see sort of intermittently throughout the film. In fact, we never actually see Claude after this, so it makes me wonder,
Dead.
did he kill Claude as well?
Obviously, I'm sure if I was a serial killer and I was just absolutely mad, I'd just kill everything in sight, including their lovely cat.
Well, you wouldn't notice like a cat noise, but you'd notice two. So you have to get rid of the original source either way.
Good point.
Yeah, he's quite the mimic, this serial killer. Anybody want to comment on that bit before we move on?
He could have had a great career in puppeteering.
Yeah.
How many cats were there? Was there two cats originally then? Because
No.
I remember. Oh right, okay. Well, the Claude's still alive because Claude climbs up the Claire.
Oh yeah, he is. He is. He must just take him up to the attic and hide him. Maybe that's what he did.
That's
a very
a very hard
good
thing
point.
to do with the cat. So he must be he might be like horrible to humans and actually really like animals.
Yes.
Oh, I think that's even worse.
Kind to the animals.
Isn't it chilling?
Claude must be
need pals.
Yeah, Claude must be a very docile cat as well.
That cat needs to go to therapy after what he's seen.
Yeah.
I'd like to just say that I really enjoyed like the 70s wallpaper and all their crazy curtains. They had very good curtains, like the ones on the landing on the stairs, and then the kind of mental red and black ones which were in the windows of the living room. But I very much enjoyed that, and the sofa. So I'm quite into visuals of films, and I know it wasn't intentional because it's just set in the time, but I did enjoy the costumes and I enjoyed the interior of the house.
Oh, speaking of costumes, did you notice that Jess, during the Christmas party scene, her jumper / cardigan had like hands?
Yeah, giant hands.
Reaching for her bosoms.
I know. I thought that was very strange, especially since she's wearing a crucifix. Well, she's wearing a cross necklace. So I was like, is she going to be a really prudish character in contrast with Barb? But then obviously she's not
Yeah.
really.
No. Yeah, so that was just that was just something noticeable, but not that significant. Oh yeah, and so this is also the scene where Mrs. Mack, the house mother, arrives, and also the noise they make during her arrival. Sort of, I suppose that's what kind of drowns out Claire's screams. What do you make of the character Mrs. Mack? Kind of an old lush.
I didn't like the comedy. I know it's Christmas and it should be more positive, guys, but the comedy in this film was so, like, every joke was made and it was like shock value. Like, there was no jokes made other than to shock the viewer. Do you guys agree?
I don't think the comedy was that bad. Like, you have to take it with a pinch of salt. It's A, the 70s, B, a slasher. You're not going to get quality writing. If you take it with if you go in with no expectations, you're always going to enjoy it. You know?
Yeah.
She was she was the comic relief, wasn't she? Basically,
yeah.
She was the jovial, like, larger lady, and also but for one thing, like, hide your booze in a book, but finish that booze before you drink the toilet booze. Surely, like, oh.
No, she always wants to have a bottle of booze. Well, no, she just has it in wee bits just for out. So whatever part of the house she happens to be in, there'll be some booze nearby. She was apparently
well-prepared woman.
Yeah, Bob Clark changed the script by injecting some more comedic bits, and apparently Mrs. Mack was based on an aunt of his.
Oh dear.
Right, so next plot point. So the following morning, Mr. Harrison, Claire's dad, arrives to pick up his daughter, but she fails to show. I quite like, even though he didn't do a lot, I quite like the character of Mr. Harrison. I kind of thought, and I kind of liked also how they didn't go the kind of cartoony way of, because he's quite a conservative character, and I suppose they could have made him a much more on-the-nose character, but they didn't. And I kind of felt bad for him just being in the company of these really unpleasant young people throughout the film. I thought he played the part very well. Like, he was too polite to complain, but you know what I mean. But you could
He was very quiet and bewildered by it all. So
yeah. Also, there's just there's a bit of an odd juxtaposition. So Claire is sort of set up to be, I mean, she's not in the film very much, and you gather from Barb's comments that she's a bit prudish. But then you go into her room, and there's the poster of the old lady giving the finger, and a couple having sex on the door that Mrs. Mack tries to hide from him in that comedic scene. And I mean, I know that's supposed to show, like, you know, she's gone to college and let her hair down, and she's got a boyfriend who we see throughout the film. Can't remember what his character was called. But Chris. Yeah, so I feel like they've set up this character to be, you know, kind of, I don't know, does that kind of, these two things clash the way that this person's been characterized? Anything to comments?
Yeah.
I don't necessarily think, you know, it clashes. Again, it's like the 70s, so there's going to be a lot of like explicit imagery anyway, and just because she's prudish in her lifestyle doesn't necessarily mean she's like prudish in like her like surroundings. Do you know what I mean? Like, we're not given like a major background in this character. I don't think it entirely cancels like one another out.
I wouldn't necessarily say she came across as prudish to me, because we know she's got a boyfriend. Yeah. They seem to be like, I just assume that they're sexually active. They didn't seem to be very chaste or anything. Yeah, the way her room is, I think it just seems like she's quite open. But like, I think I would feel a little bit like reserved if there was some guy panting down the phone. I wouldn't feel very safe.
It's like we're basing our assumption of like Claire's character off of Barb's comments. Like,
exactly.
And although I enjoyed Barb as the character, but is her father such a great judge of? Yeah, he's. When your daughter moves away from home, you're not going to know her lifestyle. Like, you can see his shock from just like being around these young women. So he's not a great judge of character, and we know Barb's got a bit of a mouth. So I feel like, you know, the things she surrounds herself by, we know she has a boyfriend. She has like these kind of more explicit imagery in her room. doesn't necessarily, like, maybe she's just not as open about these things as Barb is, and maybe she just felt like, you know, I assume most people would feel rather uncomfortable after Pigman is like grunting and moaning down a telephone at Christmas, you know?
Yeah, but see the Barb comment about oh she's such a virgin or something like that. To the average viewer, I think it's bad writing because the average viewer will be like, oh well, she must be the more chaste character if Barb's calling her that, and we don't know anything about these characters. She dies very early.
I suspect that she's probably, you know, she probably came to college and, you know, she's had a conservative upbringing, so she was probably, it's all a bit new to her, so she's still a bit prudish in some sense, but, you know, she's letting her hair down, she's mixing, she's exposing herself to new things. So it's just a kind of mixture of somebody from a conservative background exposing herself to new things in a new environment.
Yeah, I think that's exactly what it is.
Right, well, I think we've covered that. Okay, so Mr. Harrison. So Jess explains to her boyfriend Peter, who is, I don't know if he's going to the same uni or could
He's
call.
going to
He's
a
going to the-
conservatoire.
Yeah, goes to the conservatoire.
But didn't they make it out that he lives on the same campus, like it's not part of the same establishment, or is it? No.
He did seem to live in like a student uni kind of like setup, but I don't necessarily know if it's the same campus.
Anyway,
yeah, one must assume the conservatoire is separate because otherwise, you know.
Yeah, well,
like, there's a difference between a conservatoire and a college.
Well, that's the thing, because the police go from the conservatoire back to the sorority house near the end when it all comes out, and I thought they're taking an awfully long time. Isn't this all part of the same campus area? But we'll cross that bridge when we come to it. Anyway, Peter, who's a music student, she tells him that she's pregnant and planning to get an abortion, angering Peter, and they agree to discuss it later. Peter has a sort of exam/recital later on and plays his music very angrily and discordantly, which, coincidentally enough, sounds exactly like horror movie music. What did you make of the character of Peter?
What a knob end.
Yeah.
He was very annoying. He was very controlling and bossy and very bad at proposing, but that comes later. He seemed to have a temper on him, but then again, that was explained away because he was an artist. So I didn't have any love for Peter whatsoever.
Neither.
Yeah, neither. I mean, he's a musician, so.
Oh, right. All musicians. But also,
yes.
if we want to just jump into it, like Peter, and I thought for sure he was the guy, you know. I don't know if we want to go far yet.
As I always fail to mention at the beginning, there will be spoilers in this review, but yeah, we'll cross that bridge. Do you feel like he was maybe just a bit of an narrative foil, like he was a bit one-dimensional?
Yeah, what did Jess see in that guy? Because Jess is so sound. Jess is the soundest sorority sister as well.
Well, yeah, that's why she survives.
No, she doesn't.
Well,
the killer bases it off
we don't know that. Anyway, yeah.
I think we do.
Anyway.
Yeah, we'll get to that later, I guess.
She says, "Oh, he's normally so loving and caring," but then she also says that he's also got a temper on him. Yeah, an early indication is he says to her, "Oh, I love you," and she's like, "I know you do."
That sounded like a breakup if ever I heard one. To be honest, I was like, "You just say it back, surely."
Yep, I've heard that one before.
Like the equivalent of a kiss on the head.
Yeah, exactly.
Also, can I just say, like, what was up with Jess's accent? I was like really confused about where she was from, and it turns out
it was like transatlantic.
I know it was. I was like, is she like a French Canadian trying to pretend to be American? But then I was like, no, maybe she's an English exchange student. But I like it. It really did like distract me for a while.
So the classic Bollywood.
Yeah, it was kind of off-putting.
So
but, like,
yes,
not necessarily in a.
So Olivia Hussey was born in Argentina but grew up in London, and here's what she kind of sounded like to me. I think you have watched Fawlty Towers.
Yes.
Well, Nicola, Connie Booth, who plays Polly, she's American. I found Jess's accent very similar to hers because Connie Booth is an American playing an English character, and Connie Booth, her accent slips a few times, but it's all right. It sounded very similar, but like
yeah,
people
because
from.
Jess wasn't trying to be American, was she? She was just using her English accent.
No,
don't
I
you
think she was. No, I think she was trying to sound more American. But
Have
here's
you
the thing.
noticed, like,
Sorry, I was just about to say one thing that really grated me about her accent was the way she said hello when she answered the phone. She always went, "Hello,
She
hello."
was the best at answering the phone, as in like she was the worst
Pardon?
person. She's like, "Hi, who, what?" It's like, why are you so loud? Why have you never answered a phone before? It was kind of brilliant.
But it was also just, it really did kind of grate me the way she answered the phone. I know she was shouting at a party in the beginning, but it got grating after a while. Anyway, Daniel, you're about to say something.
Just on the accent point, I've always thought that, like, in the 40s and 50s mainly, Hollywood sounds more English. Like, the American people try to sound more English in their, inflection. So I just kind of thought it was that.
It's
It's
the
just-
transatlantic accent. It's like, so things can be like as consumable as possible, like in both continents, I believe. I'm not entirely sure,
It's
but
also, but it's also that stage theatrical delivery way where everybody speaks in a very direct way like this. Hey, what are you saying? That kind of thing. That a lot of early Hollywood sort of performances are like, if you know what I'm talking about.
I know what you're talking about.
Cool. Right, so that's enough slagging Jess's accent.
Jess is the best, by the way, can I just say? She was the only character I had any real connection with.
All right, well, it's just as well she was the main character then.
Yeah.
Okay. Where are we? So Mr. Harrison attempts to report Claire is missing. At the police station, they learn that a young local girl has also vanished while walking home from school. Barb is absolutely no help in this scene. In fact, she kind of exacerbates things. It's probably her fault the police don't take it seriously to begin with. Or am I misremembering that? Police are a mixed bag in this. They're half kind of useless and
So what's the name of the really inept one again? I can't remember.
Oh, the desk sergeant.
Yes. Oh, is it Drake or Dwayne or something like that? I can't remember really.
Sergeant Nash.
Oh, that's none of the things I said.
No.
Yeah, he was very dismissive of everyone.
Yeah.
So. But then Barb cracks open a beer in the station, which is probably not the best idea either.
True. But they also didn't seem that perturbed when a farmer shot a policeman in the arse.
More comic relief.
Exactly. It's like that. Oh, what he's like.
Guns are basically just like, having your keys with you when you leave the house. Phone, wallet, gun. That's what it's like in this film.
Yeah. Also, if you notice on his shoulder, the sergeant, it says Bedford, which, well, according to the trivia on IMDb, that's a reference to Bedford, which is the setting of It's a Wonderful Life.
I didn't notice, but I did see it later on in one of the police cars, on one of the police cars.
So there you go. Right, so next plot point. I'll say yes. So another local girl has vanished. After putting a drunken Barb to bed after she goes on a rant, Mr. Harrison, Chris, I think we established Chris is Claire's boyfriend, Jess, and Phil or Phyllis. I've already forgotten that actress's name. The big fat Greek wedding lady.
Name's Phil in the film.
Yeah, Phil or Phyllis. I'm guessing it's short for Phyllis. Apparently that scene when they were in the park for the search party was -12, so it was very difficult to film.
It looked very cool.
Oh, sorry to interrupt.
No, my point was nothing. It was just all their noses were red. That's how you could tell. What were you going to say?
Yeah, it was. I was just going to say, why have a search party at night? Like, I swear they get told earlier in the day, and like searching for anything at night is a very bad idea. Like, I don't understand. It seems like the police in general were pretty bad at their job.
Well, I mean, also, if the girl's only been missing a day, they wouldn't have search parties that soon. It usually takes a few days.
I don't think that's right when the person's 13 years old, and I'm presuming white.
Probably right. Callum, see when I made that that joke about the police you tutted there, I felt like I was getting into trouble for that.
No, I didn't. I was just, I don't know what I was doing. We'll stay facial spasming. Right. So, I feel like we've probably, like again, my notes on the plot are actually very scant, so I feel like we're missing major plot points. Yeah, there's actually quite a big gap between the first killing and the second killing, and so that's kind of what I liked about it. A lot of slasher films, especially Friday the 13th films, once the killings start, it just goes from killing after killing after killing, and it gets really ridiculous.
My memory of this film was very different from what it actually was. I think I was actually mixing it up with like there's like a slumber party or sleepover film, and it's just
Slumber Party.
Yeah, it all happens, Slumber Party Massacre, isn't it? So it all happens in one house in like over the one night, and I kind of thought that's what this was gonna be, but like it was much more protracted, like you were saying.
Yeah. Also, I forgot to mention the not that I don't think any of you would have thought this anyway. It's the the sorority house was was a set. It was not a set. It was all in location, and so they actually had to change the script to just sort of so it would suit the layout of the thing. And that building still stands to this day. It's quite a popular tourist spot. Yeah, I like the way they used the house as a location, like because it's quite big and it's just the use of the staircase and the attic and the various rooms. I thought it was a very good use of that location. And also because this is a low budget film, although it doesn't look too low budget in my opinion. Most of the cast were wearing their own clothes, which to me is a plus because I often find in films that a lot of clothes don't look worn, they look brand new, and it makes everything seem very artificial.
It's interesting that you said about how they're wearing their own clothes then with that character, was it Jess that has the hands on her t-shirts in the first thing, and then she's wearing the cross, which is such a mad juxtaposition. So maybe that was just like the director that decided to give her the cross.
I thought the costuming was really good. I'm surprised to hear it was their own clothes.
Yeah. I think it wasn't
Chris's coat was just mad. It was just so big. I was like, it was like there was a bear on set with him.
And he still has
his own coat.
Yep, and he still has it to this day, apparently.
You wouldn't throw that away.
No,
it's an investment piece.
Exactly. For wouldn't a coat like that get mangy?
So
Also,
Peter wears a turtleneck. On you go, sorry.
No, I was just going to say Peter's from 2001 A Space Odyssey, and I completely did not recognise him. He looks completely different with hair and in his turtleneck.
Yeah. Apparently Malcolm McDowell was offered that role, but he turned it down. I suppose I can kind of see him in it, but I feel like the thing about the character Peter is, although he's integral to the plot, he doesn't do a whole lot apart from just piss and moan. So I don't know if it would have been a good use of Malcolm McDowell's acting skills.
He's pretty good at being angry.
Yeah. Oh yeah, because he smashes the piano up at one point.
Which he does a terrible job at.
Yes, with a fucking what do you call those things they used to for
a barrier,
queues?
basically. It's a barrier.
Yeah, like queues outside of nightclubs or like, you know what I mean? Where would he? It's a bit of an odd thing to have inside a conservatoire.
Maybe it was a stand. I don't know.
Yeah, just something heavy they needed for that particular scene. Okay, so meanwhile, the house mother, Mrs. McHenry, discovers Claire's body and the killer throws by climbing to the attic after he imitates the cat, by throwing a crane hook into her face, hanging and killing her. What did you think of that whole sequence?
Pretty brutal. Yeah. I like the kind of building of anticipation and the recalling back to the cat noise. That was good because it's like something's gonna happen now, and because
You're
you've
eating
had more
noodles.
time. Yeah, not the point.
It wasn't the point when I was drinking in the afternoon, but you felt the need to point that out.
Listen, this is dinner time, okay? I'm starving.
Noodle appropriate time.
Exactly, it's appropriate. But yeah, it's that building of anticipation because you've had longer time with the victim. You're also like, oh god, you know, because at least in my case, I did enjoy her character. So I was like, oh, okay, right, we're doing this now. So it was like you start to like feel that fear kind of build up with the cat noise, and you know where she's going. So yeah, and then what happens, which is just horrible.
And
It's
also
good.
she's so close to escaping as well, like just like
Yeah.
leaving the house and the cab's waiting for her and you're like, just go.
Oh,
And she's
it's
like,
so
but I'll go into
it's
the
almost
attic instead.
frustrating.
Yeah.
It's so
Yeah.
you're like, no, you could have survived.
Yeah, you could have gone to your sister's and had a nice Christmas, but now you're dead. So
But no.
Yeah, but also a sort of similar scene happens at the beginning before she leaves the house with Mrs. Harrison, where she hears cat noises and investigates, but it doesn't lead to her death. I don't understand what all the fuss is about the cat. If you heard the cat meowing, would you go to it?
yes.
Yeah. You hear your cat meow, you go to it.
You're like, what's the cat one?
Okay. That establishes
Like,
that.
if a cat starts making a ruckus, you want to know why.
Yeah, she wants to sort the cat out with some food before she leaves for the holidays, basically.
Yeah. And she shouts from inside the building at the taxi driver, "You can wait!"
He probably didn't hear. Do you think he heard?
No, of course he wouldn't have heard. Although what people can hear in this film is a bit inconsistent, but again, we'll cross that bridge when we come to it. That's my catchphrase, folks. That's what I'm going. We're making T-shirts out of that. Official Sticky
Good
Four
idea.
podcast merch.
That's not happening, Callum.
No.
Would you say this was like the goriest scene? I can't even really remember, but I'd say that was quite a gory murder, being hung
Did
or
they show?
hanged
Did
by
they
a
actually
cook.
show the murder? Because I thought they only showed the hook flying in. Then
Yeah.
they didn't show it.
And then
Well,
her impaled on it. You're right.
Yeah.
You don't actually see it go in.
I thought
Yeah.
it was an interesting choice. They didn't show some of the murders. Actually, did they show any like actual? Well, they showed Claire's.
Yeah, they probably show hers for a little bit, but it's not a very
gory,
drawn out one either as well. It's I don't know if you've ever seen like the film Frenzy by Alfred Hitchcock. It's like one of his later films in the 60s, and it's about a serial killer, and he basically strangles women to death, and they only show one murder in it. And you're really grateful for that because it's a very long scene and it's absolutely horrible to watch. Like, it isn't even very gory. It's not gory, of course, but it's just like, it just takes ages for this person to die and it's absolutely horrible. But he made the choice only to show one of the murders because once you've seen it and it's had that impact, you don't need to see it again because then it's just gratuitous. And I think, you know, I thought that I'd seen this woman get impaled by a hook, but like they let you fill that in for yourself, which is probably better because it's actually more, you can think up horrible things with your imagination, basically.
Yeah. It's just
apparently there was more gore intended for the film, but Bob Clark decided it would be more just, you know, I mean, if it was a bit more subtle, it would be more effective if it was more subtly done. So yeah, there isn't a whole lot. I mean, there's some blood, but you don't actually see in any of the murders where people are actually stabbed or something like that, you don't actually see the impact of the blow.
I guess that kind of, I know maybe I shouldn't talk about this yet, Callum. Maybe I'm crossing a bridge that we'll come to later, but
I'll just cross it, I don't care at this point.
Right. Well, the murderer, you get the sense that he's like a child or he's had serious like childhood traumas and that's why he is the way he is. So maybe that's got something to do with it because, I mean, that's not really something you associate with a child like murder. But then again, I might be tongue shy because Halloween, you know, and Freddy's like a child in that song.
Well, no, that's Nightmare of Elm Street. No. Freddy's Nightmare on Elm Street. Michael Myers is Halloween.
Right.
Michael Myers was
In fact, this film was actually quite a big influence on, what do you call it, Halloween. Yeah.
Was it?
Yeah.
Didn't they come out like? Oh wait, it came out 4 years before. Yeah, so they
Yes.
used the POV. They popularized that in Halloween, didn't they? Like, I
Yeah.
love Halloween. I
Yeah,
think it's
exactly.
Yeah.
And like many slashers, it's also holiday themed. There's like, for almost every holiday, there's a slasher film attached to it, like My Bloody Valentine, or Valentine's Day, or April Fool's Day, or I think there's
The
even
Leprechaun series.
exactly, precisely, exactamundo.
We should make a St. Andy's one.
What do we even do apart from what even happens on St Andrew's Day?
Well, like eat haggis and get drunk. It's basically the same as like
St Patrick's Day.
Burns Day.
a Burns night one. I'd watch that.
Yeah.
Mm.
The haggis
It's like
killer.
I was thinking more like a dinner party, and there's poison going by, and it takes like different times for each victim.
Yeah.
That would be.
Oh, there you go. We need to write that script. We've seen a
Sticky
gap.
War Productions.
Exactly. We've got the patent pending on that, guys. We found the gap in the market and it's ours. So anyway, let's talk about this film. Okay, so in the park, the missing girl's disfigured body is found. Jess answers another obscene phone call and decides to file a report with the police, only for Peter to surprise her. He attempts to persuade her into marriage, but she refuses and reaffirms her decision to have an abortion. Peter leaves angrily while Lieutenant Fuller, played by John Saxon, arrives with a telephone lineman to bug the phone. So, once they hear about the obscene phone calls, that's when the police actually start doing something useful. What did you make of John Saxon's performance? John Saxon is probably best known for his role in Enter the Dragon, and he was also in Nightmare on Elm Street.
I don't think I've seen either of those films, but I recognised him instantly. So
You've not seen Nightmare on Elm Street? You're the horror
no,
buff.
I haven't. Not all the way through. But like, this is the thing. I've told you about this before. Like, I like horror movies. Like, I really like horror movies. But most of the horror movies I like are kind of female-led. So it's not in my remit.
Aren't most of them female-led? Because they're usually the last character.
Oh, sorry.
Sorry, like
the
the
last character to die. But you're right. I think that actually, like, the girl who has the nightmares in that film is a girl, isn't it? But I think all the films I watched came a little bit later than that, so I've not seen that one.
See, this is a tangent, so sorry, Callum, but I'm curious to what you guys are thinking then about Carrie, because now we were talking earlier about the sexualization and all that. I want to know what you guys think about the opening scene in that.
In Carrie?
Yeah.
Where she has her...
I actually really love that scene, and I think it's kind of like, I know what you mean, because that's the thing, like, there's all this, like, it's a contradictory thing to what I'm saying, how I don't like women to be objectified, but I think that's more about female sexuality and puberty and finding your own body. So Carrie's having this moment in the shower where she's just like enjoying being herself and just enjoying the water and everything. And then it turns to how girls can be so horrible. And because I went to an all-female Catholic school, I know exactly how horrible they can be. I've never had a Carrie moment, but like the scene, it's really nice because it's this intimate scene between herself and she's in this setting, and then it just completely flips where she thinks she's actually dying. So I think I quite like the contrast in that. The thing about the scene in Carrie, what people see it, they see it really comically now, the opening scene, because everyone's like pubic hair is so big and it's completely different to the way women style their hair these days. But I do like Carrie. I think it's a great film.
Yeah, I haven't seen Carrie in years, but I'd like to watch it again.
Fucking love that film.
Yeah.
It's so great, and I love the ending. It's like one of my favourite endings in a horror movie.
Yeah.
For something written by Stephen King, it's actually pretty good in terms of like how like women are presented, because Stephen King is like notoriously bad at writing women, especially women around Carrie's age. So I think it's like quite an impressive, piece, especially by him.
It was the first book he wrote when he was like poor and still very drunk. So I don't know if that had something to do with it. Like,
he wrote it, I think, at the height of his like meth addiction, and it wasn't too long after Carrie. And I mean,
He was
if
addicted to
you've
meth.
even like
It goes completely off the rails, doesn't it?
Stephen
There's,
King was
horrible
like absolutely off the rails in the 80s. But yeah, and there's just the way that it is like written is like just, I mean, in terms of like female characters, how Beverly's portrayed in that book is like actually haunting because she's like 13.
I remember reading. I've not read the book and I've not seen the new ones, but I saw the original, like the TV miniseries that's with Tim Curry. I remember fucking hating the ending. I'm like, it's a giant spider. That's the big reveal.
That's because he was completely off his tits, you know,
So
like he's writing a good story, and then
it's
he's
not
like,
a giant
it's an alien
spider.
with
I know,
spider
but it
face."
essentially is a giant fucking stop motion spider.
No.
That's
No, but it's the fact that it's not even a giant spider. It's supposed to be like the sentient form from a greater power that is in a constant galactic battle against the turtle that carries the universe on its back.
ugh.
Like, you couldn't.
Wasn't-
What?
Yeah, I mean, I think just the fact that this was what is essentially just, yeah. I have no
One more
words.
point on Carrie then. See, Stephen King and Brian De Palma are both notorious for being pretty bad with like women characters. So it's interesting that Carrie is like what it is.
I
Yeah.
agree.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's quite impressive.
Mm.
And I think De Palma, he really takes it up a notch as well, because the book is very sensitive, but like the visuals in that film just work so well, and the kind of underlying kind of religious iconography and like symbolism that I used towards the end with the mother. I think, yeah, I really enjoy that.
Cool. So that was our Carrie review in the middle of our Black Christmas review.
I brought it up. It's not bad.
Back to the main feature. So yeah, I just read the Peter has an argument with Barb over, she insists that one, she's not going to marry him, and two, she's going to have this abortion. He says, if you have this abortion, I'll, and then he storms off, sort of hinting that he might do something bad. So, you know, I don't even care that we're jumping ahead. So watching this again, watching this back, so Daniel, you said that you did think Peter was the killer.
No, I did. I definitely did. I mean, that scene you're talking about, he comes from downstairs and he said, "Oh, I didn't hear you because I was having a nap."
Oh yeah, that's right. I forgot about that. I should have mentioned that.
That's dead on. Then by this point, we've also seen the Claire with the baby and the doll, and she's in the rocking chair and she's got the wee baby. And this is just after we find out about the abortion.
Was there a baby doll?
Yeah,
there's a
I didn't
baby doll in
even
the
pick
rocking
up
chair.
on that kind of like connection
Neither.
though.
It's really smart foreshadowing.
Well done, Daniel.
I
the
just was
best.
like, the doll's face looks moldy. That's the only thing I got a bit fixated on that.
Yeah.
Oh, later on, jumping ahead a bit, but later on when the lieutenant questions her about Peter, and she said over whether or not he's the one making the phone calls, and she realizes that he was in the house at the same time. And she went, no, it couldn't be Peter because he was in the house when the phone call. And she did that annoying thing with her voice again. Then she turns to Phil. It couldn't be Peter, Phil. Remember that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I guess it could have been him, because then we know about the phone upstairs, the matron's phone, which is a different line.
Yeah, but the thing is, we see him outside the house than inside the house, and then we see the killer up in the attic. So it kind of jumps about a bit. So, Simon, did you think Peter was the guy?
No.
Because slashers traditionally don't use the whodunit thing, because the person who did it is a monster.
I wasn't even trying to be like, oh, who's done it? It's just, I didn't think Peter for a second, because what's his motivation at the beginning for killing Claire? It just makes no sense.
Because he's a bad bastard.
He's a bad bastard. But I was like, the thought never even occurred to me, I'm going to be honest. Maybe that's ignorance on my behalf, but like, you know.
I thought that's so weird, because I literally thought they didn't make it whodunit. They made it so clear that Peter is the killer. There's no other.
The opposite. I thought he was a red herring. I thought he was introduced so you could be like, it's definitely Peter.
Yeah,
Because
exactly. That is what his point in the plot is. It's a character, because he has that conflict with Jess, that makes us think, oh, well, maybe he's got motive, because he sort of threatens her without explicitly stating it before he storms out. And he lingers about, and he lingers around the building like a weirdo.
yeah, like I'm
I
definitely
just kind of
jumping
wrote
ahead.
that, like, sorry. I
Oh
just
no,
kind
no,
of wrote
go.
that behavior off. Musicians just tend to be like that, so.
Yeah.
Uh,
I know, Nicola. Oh,
yeah.
yes, our extended acquaintances are mostly musicians, aren't they? That we share between us.
Yes.
Exactly.
Artists with
Artists.
temper.
Yeah,
Yeah, but they don't go around
I
shouting
was
at their
raised by
girlfriends.
one, so.
some of them do, but don't they? No.
I just don't understand why he was like later on in the film he was at the basement window. Do you think it's because he couldn't get in the front door? Because it seemed like a weird place for him to be.
Yeah, like that whole, well, that's a bit contrived, but we'll get to that later.
Okay.
I have a lot to say about that. Okay, so the Lieutenant Fuller arrives and the lineman to bug the phone. So after the police leave, the killer murders Barb with a glass figurine, although not before. Although he nearly does that, and then she has an asthma attack, and then he goes and hides. And something happened in between. So, oh yeah, that would make me think Barb's room is right at the back of the upstairs landing. I wondered how how Jess would have heard her from all the way up there. I know it's dramatic license, but this is my point, that what characters could hear in the house is a bit inconsistent.
But the house was quite quiet at that moment. It wasn't like there were any like carol singers. She was just sitting like on her own in silence by the fire. Wasn't that right?
That is right. In fact, that is what happened, isn't it? So Barb. So yes, Barb had. So was it the carol? I'm trying to think. So Barb had her asthma attack, and then the carol singers came, and then he killed her after whilst that was going on.
True.
Yes.
What
Because
do
there
you
was the
guys think
contrast
about
of the
Barb?
kids and him.
And
What
also,
do you guys think about Barb?
she was a gobshite and a cow, but she was But yeah, she was an entertaining character.
Entertaining, really. I feel bad because the mall obviously didn't want to visit her, and I understood why she acted the way she did. And then she went off at the Tory dad.
She did call her mum a gold-plated whore, which is a bit of a strange thing to say your mum.
That's a great line. Honestly, I think, yeah, Barb was a bit of a gobshite, but like, I really liked her character. I thought she was like, she wasn't like a great person, but like in comparison to like all these, like the literal killer, I thought she was quite likable.
Well,
And she knew when to go to bed, didn't she? They were like, "Come on, Barb, you've had enough. Let's go to sleep."
You get this idea of a woman who kind of knows who she is, which is nice.
Are you sure? Because she kind of came across like she had a chip on her shoulder.
Do you not feel like it felt like there was a 34-year-old woman walking around the sorority house, and it's like, why is Barb still here? It's like, has she not graduated like 10 decades, like a decade ago? She seems so much older than everyone else, so much more jaded by life.
Yeah.
Well, it's the alcohol.
Which I think you always need like a jaded female character in anything. Like.
Yeah, that's the thing. I was really pleased that none of these women were like ditzy girls squealing and running about the house.
Yeah, none of them were like that caricature you see so often in horror, which is like brainless and incredibly misogynistic. And it's like, what is the point behind that? What is the reasoning that you need to make women, the only women, because it's so often there's not that many, presented in such a fashion which makes them seem so...
I mean, to be fair,
childlike.
It
feels nonsense.
I mean, to be fair, men in slasher films don't. I mean, none of the men survive, and that's because they're usually kind of philandering and, you know what I mean.
And stoned.
Exactly.
So on her dialogue, then maybe you guys can tell me, because I've not watched enough slasher films. Like I've watched like the classics, like the Tarantino one and the Halloween, blah blah blah. So on dialogue,
what slasher films Tarantino made?
The one with Kurt Russell. I'll
That's
tell
not.
you.
Oh yeah, Death Proof. That's not a slasher film,
Yeah.
is it?
What?
Yeah,
What's that genre though? I can't even remember. Like it's a certain type of genre.
Yeah.
or maybe it is a slasher.
No.
He does kill everyone though, so I'll give you that.
No, there's
By
like.
that logic, Kill Bill's a slasher.
I think like there's certain.
No, but he's like a guy on the road, like this unknown stranger who like you know, like, and so there's more of a horror element to that for sure.
That's true.
Yeah.
That's Kill Bill's a kung fu movie. Okay, take my Death Proof terrible comment out of it, right? I'm just asking about dialogue in horror films. Should I just give it a pass when I watch these, because when I watch them, like I eye roll because Barb's character's so unknown. Like the
I think with
housewife's
horror, you need to like not take it as seriously.
Right.
It's not going to be like a great work of art. It's going to be like a slasher kind of like, you know, like there's more to it than just the dialogue. Do you know what I mean? Like I'm no expert. Like I said, I'm shite with horror, but I think like, you know, it's not going to be like this like insane like dialogue like monologuing masterpiece. It's about like it's not about.
I mean,
but it's not about that. It's about kind of like
the action
it's
of it.
not. Yeah, it's about the action of it. It's not about like speeches and stuff.
I mean, I've seen a lot worse in this genre.
Really bad.
I think. Oh, go on, Callum.
Yeah, I was going to say, it's interesting that you say that because Bob Clark actually, he's dead now, but he directed quite a lot of comedies. He did A Christmas Story, which is I've not seen, which is quite an offbeat kind of Christmas theme film. He also did the Porky's films, which are very raunchy, to say the least.
It's really surprising that he made comedies, considering how unfunny this was. Nicola, I want to hear what you think of this, considering you're the horror resident.
I wouldn't say it was like clunky dialogue. I think it like serves the purpose of pushing the narrative forward. But I do think like with more famous horrors and things that have developed later, that like there's more classic lines and like, you know, have you seen Texas Chainsaw Massacre?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So like I think the beginning of that film and like the kind of natural dialogue where they're just like in this van, you get to know the characters so quickly and you give a shit about them and they do crack jokes that make you laugh. Whereas with this like beginning of the scene, like the first scene in the film, you don't really get that kind of like connection with the characters in that sense. I don't think that they're just like running off gags and everything. I don't think there were any lines that really stood out apart from the one where John Saxon's like, he's upstairs, you know, like that's the classic line from that film, and it isn't he's upstairs, it's like the calls are coming from inside the house. That is the classic line from this film, but I don't think it is anything else to write home about. And I do think horror films can have amazing well yeah, that one too, can put that on top of a cupcake, can't you? Or on one of your t-shirts, Callum. Anyway, I do think like the horror films that I watch have better lines, but that might just be because they've come later, so they're just better at it by that point. But I also really like Candyman, and that's really hammy. Like the script in that is really hammy, and it is much more about the visuals. And also like Philip Glass does the music for that film, and that just kind of brings it up a level. Like it transcends the kind of normal horror feeling because it's just got such an amazing soundtrack. But this one is definitely quite paint by numbers, I'd say.
Yeah.
Apart from the fact that the characters are so good in the sense that they're not like just cookie cutter characters. I think the script isn't very good, but the characters are getting there.
Yeah.
Speaking of soundtracks, what do you guys think of this one?
Wasn't much use of a soundtrack apart from one music cue that he used quite a few times. I mean,
I quite like that.
Because I'm the type of person who enjoys my kind of kitchen sink realism, I quite like it when music is used minimally in a film, because obviously real life doesn't have a soundtrack. So I prefer more, is it diegetic or non-diegetic when it's actually
I never remember which one it is because there's only two things to choose from.
Yes, but if you know what I mean, like I prefer it when the music is just coming from inside the scene rather from, you know, just
like from the radio, things like that.
So for instance, like, you know that bit where the killer's in the attic and he's not actually killed anyone, but he's just running about and screaming and making all kinds of weird noises. Like, the fact that there's no music to sort of clash with that, I thought that was quite effective. So I like how it's used sparingly. I mean, the actual music cues that they do use, I mean, it's all right. It's spooky, but like, it's nothing to write home about. I mean, it's not like Halloween.
Yeah, I like that about it though, because in Halloween, how many times did they play that song?
Quite a few.
Mm.
There isn't even a theme in Friday the 13th. It's just that Jason approaching, and somebody gets their head chopped off.
That's quite creepy.
Callum, you're on mute, mate.
I was going to say, Simon, you look like you have something to say. Are you knitting?
No, I was fiddling. I don't have much to say. The score was unremarkable. But I think, I agree with you. It's like, I like there wasn't like, a huge amount of music behind everything, because I feel like in this kind of horror it wouldn't necessarily worked.
Yeah.
It's like,
Yeah.
it's creepy because it's like a home invasion, and it's like, it makes it more real. Whereas if it was like maybe like a psychological thriller, like the music could have helped with it.
Funny you should say that, because Bob Clark actually considers this more of a psychological thriller than a slasher, although he could just be being pretentious. Also, yeah, I agree with what you're saying, because often the music is used quite obnoxiously in a horror film, like just especially when it comes to jump scares, and I suppose this is before jump scares became ubiquitous.
I thought there kinda was one with Claire's death. That was a wee bit of a jump scare.
How?
No, just me that thought that. All right, that's
Yeah,
fine.
but how was her? Yeah, but what do you mean?
Because
it
she's
came
all
out of
like,
nowhere.
yeah, she's all like, what's going on? And she doesn't see it coming. So there's that. And then, yeah, suddenly she's in trouble.
Oh,
Yeah,
right.
but it
I thought
was
because usually in jump scares, isn't it usually that something, the scary thing isn't actually, it's like, as is the cliche, even though it was a cat in this scene, like a cat suddenly appears and it's not a scary thing.
Yeah, sure. I keep going off on tangents, but fucking jump scares ruin horror for me. I think I'd watch so much more horror if
I think
jump
a
scares.
tangent's going around, son, so
Yeah,
tangent away. But yeah, I agree. Like,
thank you.
I love a good jump scare, but it's got to be used like sparingly. Like
I'm
the
awful with
best.
jump scares.
I love but it's like the misdirection. I love that. I love that so much. Like,
it's used excessively in Halloween H2O, where every time Jamie Lee Curtis, like every time someone approaches Jamie Lee Curtis, it's like, whoa! Like, nobody approaches her normally. Like, even just somebody saying, oh, hi, and it's like,
I okay, so I love Candyman. I think that's a great film, but Candyman 2 is a terrible film. And Candyman 2, one of the things it's quite known for is the fact that it uses excessive jump scares, but in a way that completely backfires, because obviously the protagonist is Candyman and he happens to be an African American man. So in Candyman 2, basically whenever there is a black man on the screen, it's in the form of a jump scare, to the point where you're like, well, this is just racist. It's like absolutely ridiculous.
How did that get greenlit?
Well, because it was like 1990 something, and yeah,
okay.
things were terrible for everything.
or maybe
it's quite funny because it's so terrible.
Or maybe it's a comment on white paranoia about white American paranoia about black men.
Wow.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah.
Write that thesis.
Nice save, Callum. Right, so we've got more plot, don't we? This film isn't over. So where were we?
Can I just say something about this film? Like,
sure. Of course, we are reviewing it after all.
Everything is kind of focused around the telephone calls, and then like, what I thought was quite interesting is obviously because now we don't really have those telephones in our houses. Well, we do, but no one uses them. And the whole searching for the line, I thought it was really interesting to see the telephone exchange and the idea that if you were watching this as an audience member at the time, you're supposed to know how telephone exchanges work, whereas I definitely did not know how they were working. And it was just this guy running to and fro between these massive, like, you know, bits of machinery. So I really enjoyed seeing that kind of retro element, but I really didn't understand what was going on.
Yeah, I'm not too quite sure with the technicalities of that, but it was like an effective way of building up the tension, just cutting back and forth between the conversation on the phone. And I imagine in real life today, if this happened today, it'd be much easier to find out where the calls were coming from.
Yeah, so for a while in like the late 90s, you had caller ID, so you got all these things sent to you from BT, and you plugged it into your phone, your landline, and it would pop up with a number. So that was like a bit of technology, which was like around for 3 minutes, and then no one needed it anymore. But it was quite a revelation to be able to know who was calling you before you picked up the phone, and that's how old I am. So
Okay, so after Barb is murdered with the glass figurine, Jess experiences another unnerving phone call in which the caller restates her argument with Peter. Now, I missed this. What did they actually restate that made her think, oh, Peter said that? I couldn't quite tell. Somebody fill me in on that?
What do you mean, sorry?
So, at one point in the later in the film, the caller says something that is similar to
Peter
what Peter
said earlier?
Yeah.
Yeah. What did he say? Something about the baby, about how I will kill the baby. And then that's what the caller says. Could be wrong on the exact quotation, but something along those lines.
No, it's because Peter phoned her and said that. No, this was reinstating something that Peter had said to her in person, because that conversation is later on.
Okay, I'm confused.
Am I right or am I wrong? Or
and then Jess says, "Oh God."
Yes.
That bit.
That bit. That's the bit.
Okay, I can't remember what he said, but it was something about the argument they had.
I intended to rewatch the film to find this out, but I never got round to it. Okay, tell us in the comment section, guys. We don't get comments. Nobody's going to let us know.
Has anyone made a comment on our channel?
No, only you.
Oh well.
When you were, and only in an attempt to embarrass me.
We should edit this. I mean, that's like 5 seconds there of total silence, Callum, just so you know.
Sorry. Yeah. So Lieutenant Fuller calls her to say the attempt to trace the call failed, and theorises that Peter could be responsible, but Jess doubts this. Phil is murdered next, although we don't see this. Do we see Phil getting... No, we don't, because she goes upstairs and she keeps shouting on her, but we never hear back. So then Jess gets another phone call in which the killer alludes that some sort of transgression between two children named Agnes and Billy. The call is long enough to be traced, and Sergeant Nash instructs... Okay, now I'm getting ahead of myself here. So throughout it, we hear this Agnes and Billy, and we also hear this, I'm guessing what's supposed to be Agnes and Billy's parents. What do you make of this whole dynamic? Anyone?
Well, if we're talking Agnes and Billy, I thought that Agnes was like supposed to be Billy's sister. Yeah.
Like baby sister or something.
Yeah. But maybe my like thing is screwed a wee bit, because I did watch a YouTube video with a theory right after it where it like told me that that's what it was.
You should watch those theories videos.
I know, mate, but I was fascinated by it. So basically, the thing is that Billy, his parents have both died, and he's looking after his wee sister Agnes, and he's killed Agnes, and that's why he's talking about how we shouldn't tell them what we done, Agnes, shit like that.
No, but he also adopts the persona of his parents, so his parents surely are alive at the time if he's recreating their reaction.
That doesn't sound
not necessarily.
Like... Yeah.
Yeah, I at least assumed they were all dead. And he was taking on their characteristics as he went. That's actually quite a common trait in trauma.
Well, I mean,
So-
I assume they were all dead at this point in the plot in the film, but I'm just saying that whatever happened between Agnes and Billy, that his parents bore witness to it. That's why he does their voices as well. Maybe. He's a nutter, so who
I just
knows?
assumed, yeah. I mean, he's a nutter. I just assumed they were all dead.
Yeah, I do think the film doesn't really give you a lot to go on, and you have to fill in a lot of the blanks with that one. I don't think
And I think
like
that
there's
works
a
to
very linear narrative to that.
and I think that works to its strength because often, well, again, this is the first of its kind. So often with slasher films, there's something to latch onto, like because we never actually see the killer, we never see his face fully. So he's just this shape. So it's just a POV thing. Whereas, you know,
The unknown is much more frightening.
Yeah.
so even with like somebody like Michael Myers's whose face you never see, like that's still that character still has a physical presence. Where this not so much.
Yeah, you just get that really terrifying eye, which is just like open very, very wide behind the door. And that's quite a haunting shot.
Yeah, that I was going to get to that later, but we might as well talk about that now. What do you think of that old shot with the eye through the crack in the door, and he's just staring at that? Freaked me the fuck out when I was 16.
Yeah, I thought that was really
Horrible.
effective.
Horrible.
It didn't look like scary. I thought the person with the eye looked like scared as well. I thought that was like
Well,
it looked like he was frightened.
Personally, when like the killer is so disturbed that they're like scared of themselves, that's scarier to me. Like the
Completely
idea that they are
unhinged.
like completely unhinged, whereas they're enacting these things and like are in fear themselves. Maybe it's the childlike quality, but that is so much more disturbing to me than like a ruthless killer who's just like fuck it all. The idea of just like that childlike quality is like super disturbing.
Also, when he screams and he's like, you get the sense that when he comes after, like, you know, obviously, like your Jason Voorhees and your Michael Myers, you always see them walking very slowly towards them. Obviously, that's scary in its own way because it has this kind of inevitability. But Billy, if that is his real name, charges at them or in like full force.
Terrifying.
You know,
Literally fucking terrifying.
Like a real life nutter.
Yeah, you don't know when he's going to pounce, do you?
Yeah, he's like a real life nutter. There's no anticipation, there's no build up as he slowly drags his cobbled foot. No, he just pounces at you and he's unhinged and he's terrified of himself and he's traumatized and it's just horrible. It's just horrible. I mean, they're stuck in the house with him. They're stuck there while he's just making pig noises.
Or acting out his own childhood trauma.
Yeah, or acting out his own childhood trauma down the phone. It is so disturbing.
It's interesting. So I, for years, thought it was all the one guy doing all those voices because the way the voices are, even the woman's voice, the mum voice, actually sounds kind of masculine. Like it sounds like a man doing a woman's voice, but apparently the voices were Bob Clark, the director, another actor whose name escapes me, and a female actor who unfortunately no one can remember her name. Which is kind of shit for her.
Yeah, I bet she's livid.
Tragic.
Because they all did really well. Like, I'm guessing they must have rehearsed all the, like, they must have like created this little subplot between themselves.
Yes.
Sorry, Nicola, I thought you were about to say something.
I know, I'm sorry, I blanked when you looked at me. Yeah, I don't know. I didn't really think about the voices down the phone as much as I should have, because I think that's where the whole backstory of Billy was supposedly like, you know, entrenched. Basically, you're supposed to pick up on things there, but I was just like, oh, there's just some bloke on the end of the line being horrible. And I was it's a shame because basically I know this is a good film and it is probably better that they don't show any gore, but I'm quite into that kind of stuff, so I don't mind like a bit of a horror film which is a bit of guts and a bit is going to shock me, but you obviously don't get that with this film.
I much prefer gore and guts over like scary man-child killer any day.
Yeah.
Like I'm just a massive coward, and I think just through kind of overexposure to guts and gore, like doesn't affect me at all. Whereas like this is
Yeah.
like I like on one hand I'm like, yeah, it's good there wasn't gore. It's like, you know, new and original. I feel like if there was gore, I'd like probably be able to handle it better.
handle it more,
which is
yeah.
really kind of messed up. But like it's the man-child thing. It just terrifies me.
That's why I find the Babadook so scary. Another tangent, sorry guys, but you never see the Babadook in that film.
Yeah. I think I saw
It's
when I saw that I
terrifying
was
'cause
a
he's
bit
like a child.
disappointed. It is creepy, but I think I watched it after everyone had hyped it up like a lot. So I don't know what I was expecting, but it wasn't that. But it was still good. I probably need to give it another watch because I don't think you should ever watch a film once you've heard everything about it from other people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. So, like I said, we kind of jumped ahead a bit there, so I'll just fill in the blanks. So, the lieutenant goes to see Peter after he overhears the conversation between Jess and him about don't kill the baby. So he goes to the conservatoire. Peter's not there, but then he gets a report from the dude from the what is it? What the phone? What is the thing? The guy who's looking
The telephone company.
the directory. Yeah, about the calls coming from inside the house, and he tells the desk sergeant, "Okay, don't tell her that the guy's in the house. Just tell her to go outside." And I kind of accept that he does tell her in the end because she won't listen. So here's the point where she makes the kind of it's often said and often joked about in how in horror films people just don't remove themselves from the situation where obviously something threatening is about to happen. You know, just leave the house. Don't investigate the scary noise. Just leave. Just leave. That's what we will always say. That's what I always say. So here's the question. Is Jess a brave person because she really cares for her pals and she arms herself with a poker and she goes and investigates? Or is she a fucking idiot because a cop just told her, killer's in the house, leave immediately?
That's a good question, Cal.
That is a good question. Please answer it.
I think she's brave.
I think
she's
bravery
stupid.
and stupidity go hand in hand.
Yeah.
Isn't it just like a kind of natural reaction? So the reaction is she's like, I just saw my friends go upstairs. I know they're just up the stairs, so I'll just quickly go and get them. But she forgets there's a police officer outside, surely. Like, this is what I would have done. I'd be like, I'll go get that guy in the car and then he can come in with his gun and we'll both get my friends together. But that's not what she does. And also,
No.
he's already dead.
And
No one knows
also,
that yet.
there's armed men patrolling the grounds as well, so they could raid the house with a small army.
You may be too late by that point.
Yeah. Also, yeah, good. Thanks for reminding us about the cop who's had his throat slit. So that's why the police don't immediately enter the vicinity because the cop that's guarding the house has had his throat slit. So she goes up. She finds Barb and Phil in the same bed, both dead, and then she sees the eye and then she kicks the door, and then she tries to, runs down the stairs. It's locked. Well, she has to unlock the front door, but it's locked. And then grabs her by the hair, and she does the classic horror movie thing. She runs into the cellar, locks the door, and he loses interest pretty quickly.
Yeah, he is deranged.
Yeah, and he doesn't actually have a signature weapon like most slasher villains do. So no axe, no machete. So yeah. So this is the weird bit I was thinking about. How Peter enters this scene, like presumably Peter heard all the ruckus, and he was somewhere in the vicinity. But the way he enters it, he kicks. What do you call is there a word for the cellar windows? Is there like a special name?
Little windows, no.
He enters the room in the weirdest, most threatening way possible. Like,
yeah, because does he spot her first, or he's tapping and being like, "Jess, are you in there?" And then tries a few windows, and then gets a better view of her, and then decides to smash through. But then maybe he smashes through because she does look really scared, and she's holding a poker. So maybe he thinks she's in trouble,
because when he gets in, he says, "Are you in here?"
She might have left.
That's just...
Yeah, exactly. So he's not sure if she's in there or not. So he doesn't see her until he actually gets right in and has a good look. So he just kicks it in and then slides in. Are you in here? Are you in it? There you are. What are you doing down here? What's going on? Like, I mean, I get the point. Is it's supposed to keep it ambiguous as to whether he's the baddie or not? I mean, he is a baddie in his own particular way. But do you think? Would you guys? What do you think of that scene? Because I've talked long enough.
What do you
I
mean
think
by
they-
baddie, Callum?
Well,
Sorry.
the main villain.
Like now we were having this discussion, is it good sick or bad sick? Do you mean like, because you can be a baddie now and it's like considered attractive?
What you mean, like Draco Malfoy?
Nicola, what were you going to say? Sorry.
Oh, I was going to say maybe if she screamed when she went in the basement, then I'd be like, oh, he heard her and that's why he's come. But like, I don't really understand why Peace is down in the basement at all.
Yeah, like why is he in the basement area? Like instead of like, and isn't like the house being like patrolled at this point? Like,
Yeah.
What-
Those
why?
patrols seem to have disappeared from the plot
yeah, the
conveniently.
patrols have disappeared, and he decides to kick in a window in the cellar for no reason.
Slides in like whoa.
Yeah, like
Are you in
it's
here?
Spider-Man 3. Like it makes no sense.
I thought he's seen
Um,
her, so I thought that he's seen Jess and then that's why. Like,
I presume he heard her, not seen her,
I thought he
because
might have seen her when she was holding the poker and was right under the stairs, no?
no,
Yeah, me
because
too.
when he kicked the window, when he actually got in, he said, "Are you in here?"
that's because she might have
Maybe
left.
that's what he just said, you know? Like sometimes you say that when you see someone, but you just like repeat it because you want them to say, yeah, I am, you know?
Anyway,
Also, at this point, you do think he's the killer, or
Yeah.
you're supposed to think he's the killer.
anyway, anyway, he sees her, asks what she's doing. He approaches her like a nonce, and then we cut to outside where the police have arrived, and they hear screaming. They can hear this is the thing. They can hear full bloody murder screaming from a basement from outside whilst all the sirens are blaring. This is this thing of how sound carries in this universe is a bit like.
Well, the window smashed. Maybe that's why they could hear it because there was no double glazing.
Fair enough. So anyway, they go inside and they find she's beaten him to death and she's half conscious. And then we have the end scene, which I'll describe in a second. So the police arrive and hear Jess screaming. They discover her barely conscious in the basement next to Peter's bloody body, having seemingly killed him in self-defense. They put her to bed in her room, believing that Peter was the killer, and remaining unaware that the bodies of Claire and Miss McHenry are still in the attic. Jess is left in the house to rest with a cop standing outside. The killer's voice is heard from inside the attic, revealing that he's still alive. Jess's fate is left ambiguous as the house telephone begins to ring. Okay, so this is the second stupid bit.
It is stupid.
Because they would take her to hospital. They wouldn't leave
They
her.
would. Sorry, what's his name? Mr. Harrison faints like for a second and they take him to hospital. So it doesn't make any sense that they wouldn't have taken Jess to hospital, who just had like a physical fight and was like covered in blood and also traumatized, to hospital too.
Yeah,
And they
why
would just
did they
leave
keep
her
her in the
alone.
crime scene?
Exactly.
Exactly.
That's not very
Like,
traumatic.
Every single room would be being checked, and they didn't check and they didn't check the attic.
Yeah, no matter if they think the killer's dead, that's still an active crime scene. Like,
Exactly.
that makes no sense. Like, police in media are like dumb as fuck usually, but like the incompetence in this film is baffling. It is truly baffling. Like, there's just it's frustrating to see.
Mm-hmm. The fact that they hadn't gone into the attic already, because there is like a set of like there's a ladder attached to the wall. It's like someone could be up there. There could be two killers. There could be two people working together. Any amount of things.
Search the house. Search it. That's what your
top
job
to
is.
bottom.
They do say
search
that.
it.
The police say that they're going to wait for I don't know if it's the FBI, it's basically the other detectives to come in, and that's when they'll do a thorough search of the house.
Aren't they supposed to scout it out before the experts come in, so the experts don't get aren't damaged goods? Like, I thought you were supposed to scout it out and then like bring them in.
You're not going to catch me defending the police, but that's like what the script says, you know.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. Maybe it's potentially contaminating a crime scene, but I mean, it makes no sense. But I do like the fact that we never actually fight. So I do actually like the fact that it turns out Peter isn't the killer, and maybe this is a game changer in terms of storyline, where it turns out that usually with these stories it's a whodunit, but then it's actually not a whodunit because the killer is actually just a random psycho, which makes it more disturbing in a way. It's not like somebody you know, it just could be anybody who's just wandered into. Because that is the scary thing. It's just somebody who's just randomly wandered into this place and started killing people, but hides in the big house. I don't know. I like that aspect of it, but how it ends doesn't really make much sense.
I really like the ending, but I guess I was suspending a lot of disbelief. But just
Exactly.
having like that final, the final phone call, so you know that Jess's deed is a bit like, you know, that blows you away.
And it's all, well, we don't know what Jesse's deed, but it's all one.
No, but you, just the way that the formula of the film and the fact that he makes the phone calls just after he kills someone implies that Jess is definitely dead.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
and the cop doesn't think to go in, and the cop outside, even though it's obvious he can hear it because he turns around when it starts ringing, and the phone is right next to the front door, if we remember the layout of the house. Because remember, the carol singer woman could say, "Oh, your phone's ringing."
yep, she did.
Yeah. But I lost my train of thought there.
Maybe he thought, Jess can get it.
Yeah, before we actually cut to the, yeah, exactly. Before we cut outside to the outside shot through the credits, and I like it how they kept that wide shot of the whole house and the cop outside. How that whole scene is just in one take. So we start in the room, then we go from room to room to room, and then we finally go up to the attic. I like that.
No one obviously looks in that window because she was at the window the whole time, Claire, like in that bloody rocking chair.
Well, it was the condensation from the winter chill hid it, maybe.
I know, so frustrating.
Yeah.
Claire's like a bag over her head was really frightening. I don't know if anyone said that already, but that was a really good imagery.
Yeah, it was very disturbing.
And the way she rocks into frame as well, and the use of music there was pretty cool.
Callum, like, you read the trivia for this film. I'm sure it said something about the cat licking her face. I can't remember that bit. It might just be because I wasn't paying attention, but did that happen?
Yeah, the cat did lick her face with a bag over it.
That bit. I obviously just like blocked it out.
Because I remember that the cat was actually in the attic, so the cat wasn't dead as far as we know.
Yeah.
You froze there a bit, Simon. You all right?
Yeah, all good. Just lousy connection up here.
Yeah. So that's us going scene by scene by scene. All in all, what do you make of the film? I mean, I think it's obviously there's some parts of it's dated, and like I said, near the end there's a couple of stupid bits, but you know, I think this is a proper good horror film, and it doesn't have the annoying tropes that go along with this genre. And I know I've said this about 3 times, but you know, I think it still holds up. Saima.
I agree. I enjoyed it, even though I'm, as I've stated multiple times now, pretty shit with horror. It was good. I liked, again, how it subjected my own kind of expectations, because it was actually just made before most of those things became like such a cliche in the genre. Yeah, it was good. I don't know if I'll watch it again too soon, because I'm a bit disturbed by it, but it was good. I liked having that many female characters that, you know, weren't so cartoonish all together in one film. I always enjoy that. Yeah, I don't really have any qualms against it, apart from like the dialogue, I guess, and some of the clunkier moments and the ineptitude of the police. That, you know, like there was moments of frustration, but it's not so much that it takes away from my enjoyment of the film.
Danny boy.
Oh, did you say Danny boy? I think Nicola, on you go. Save best till last.
Well, yeah, no, that's fine, because I'm like, I don't like it that much. I understand it's a good film, But maybe it is like, whilst the characters aren't completely like brain dead and sexualized, they're also, you don't really get to know them as much as I want to know them. And the pacing of the film, I think it's a bit too slow paced. I don't think it has that heightened climax of a horror film that I'm looking for. But like, I actually quite like the fact that it's a little bit visually dated, but as Caleb says, I don't think it is dated as in terms of like the style of the film. I think that actually really holds up. But I probably wouldn't watch it for another 10 years.
Yeah.
As I did.
I guess we'll leave you with 2 words to describe this film. Merry Christmas. Play us out, Callum.
Daniel, you're sacked. Okay, so yeah, Christmas is upcoming, so we'll see you in about a week or so, just before Hogmanay, with our special Hogmanay special. Said special too many times. Nicola, thank you once again for coming on the show.
Thanks for having me. Breaking up my monotony of the day.
Good. Hopefully the first of many appearances. Any final thoughts, things to add, guys?
No.
Nothing
Happy
much.
holidays.
Yeah. Happy holidays. Merry Christmas. Happy Hanukkah.
Etc.
Merry Kwanzaa. Eid Mubarak. I'm pretty sure some of them have already happened, so
Eid's definitely happened.
Yeah. Anyway, happy holidays, guys. See you after the fact, and catch yous